Giovanni, that's just an initial, and Servandoni. He also had a French name because he was Italian, but he worked a lot in France. And no, I think I'm wrong. It's clear that yeah, it's clear that I learned about him just yesterday. Just a second. Okay. Now I was right. I thought because I am obsessed now almost with Yanis Xenakis, who also changed his name in France. Instead of Yanis, he chose the name Jean. And for a second, I had the feeling that I confounded, Servandoni with Xenakis, but they both actually changed their first name in France to Jean. So Giovanni became Jean and Niccolò became Nicolas. So Jean-Nicolas Servan was actually, well, known as Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni, but he was an Italian working in France. You see, born May 2nd, 1695, and died in 1766, was an Italian decorator, architect, scene painter, firework designer. This is an interesting, qualification, and trompe-l'œil specialist. Now, let's face it, out of these, several attributes or qualifications, 3 of them would be totally inconceivable today. That of a decorator, a firework designer, and trompe-l'œil specialist. Although Bernard Tschumi, a significant force in architecture these days, and for some time, of course, in the last 20, 30 years, said that the best architecture is fireworks. So if fireworks is the best architecture, then Jean-Nicolas Servan or Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni was the man for the job. Doing the right thing, the important thing. He was born in Florence, the son of a French carriage driver. I love this. Yeah, he was the son of a French carriage driver. So you see, his father was French. So maybe, returning to roots was not just, a sign of, accommodating himself to the new surroundings. Interesting. Jean-Nicolas Servan, or Giovanni, he's known mainly as Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni. That's how I learned about him. So he was educated as an artist of perspective in Rome. And let's say it again. He lived after Palladio. Palladio, as far as I know, never used the perspective except in the Teatro Olimpico, where he realized a work where he employed perspectival illusions. But in drawings, I never saw a perspectival drawing by Palladio. While this man, living a good number of years after Palladio, was educated as an artist of perspective in Rome, and was a pupil of Giovanni Paolo Panini, an interesting architect, worked in London as a set designer at the recently founded Royal Academy of Music, but moved to Paris in 1724, where he became director of decorations. This is an interesting job. Why is it we don't have any longer such jobs? Director of decorations or director of fireworks. The Paris Opera, at that time situated in the Théâtre du Palais Royal. He became a member of the Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture in 1731. His activity was considerable, whether as a painter or as an inventor of scenic contrivances for fête are, how to say, I should leave it like this untranslated, but you understand, parties. At the marriage of royal personages. He decorated public festivals in England, France, and Portugal. during the year 1738, 1743, and 1754, 1758. Anyway, 200, about 70 years ago, 65, Servandoni produced a series of successful theatrical productions, much in the style of 17th century machine plays, with an emphasis on elaborate changes in decor and special effects, often set to music. Unlike the machine plays of the 17th century, Servandoni's productions use pantomime rather than dialogue, with a description of the story provided in the program. His productions were typically based on well-known stories from literature and mythology, such as the Spectacle de Pandore, which told the tale of Prometheus and Pandora. I don't know, anyway, something is a little bit strange here if my memories from mythology are correct. Or La Forêt Enchantée, the Enchanted Forest, which was inspired by Torquato Tasso's Jerusalem Delivered. He died in Paris in the early 1766. By the way, Leonardo da Vinci also sometimes did what Servandoni did, you know, costumes and theatrical, you know, I mean, stage design and, you know, creating, you know, all kinds of necessary things for fete, for, you know, royal parties and so on. Here he was, and there is a Servandoni, you see, the Italian name is more often employed. Servandoni, Jean-Nicolas, there is a picture of him here, which is not very like this one, perhaps. It doesn't look really, you know, it doesn't look very impressive and very happy, but he was probably a very nice man, and he even made it on a stamp. As you can see, the 250th anniversary of Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni, I imagine, of his, you know, of his death. Servandoni again, decorator. Yeah, he looks younger. Anyway, you will see many drawings and the paintings by him and interesting works. Even this image is rather interesting. I don't think he did it. It's some kind of a collage. Someone did it with his perspectival architectural drawing or rendering, and you know, his portrait incorporated there. So now we look at some of his visualizations about architecture. Sorry about the previous two ones. The resolution was not great. This is still a work in progress about this architect I knew nothing about until yesterday. But what do we see here? We see a cow, some animals, and we see a triumphal arch. We see triumphal architecture. We see, you know, rather desolate and maybe tormented tree. And we see a statue or two or so. So, you know, well, he lived at the time when Piranesi lived as well. And at that time, the animals were running even between the columns of the temple of Hera at Paestum, that incredible temple, pre-Doric temple, which, you know, received the total admiration of Louis Kahn, who said that for him, Paestum was more important than the Parthenon. And then it was equally admired by Goethe and Winkelmann. And so Piranesi created beautiful etchings of that temple. There also, in some etchings, you can see animals, you know. Yes, it was it was the 18th century. Wow, you know, they didn't have the bureaucracy of today to interdict cows to enter in the precinct of a temple. What do we see here? We see the immense architectures and minuscule human beings. I mean, look at the human beings. Well, we would say that those minuscule human beings built these gigantic architectonic structures which became ruins. still very moving, still as ruins, dramatic and yes, impressive. But I don't know. I don't know if you use here the correct size of human beings in relation with these monuments, but the monuments are impressive. Let's face it, very impressive. I kind of like them even more as ruins. Other ruins here. There was a love for ruins in the 18th century. Piranesi was born in 1720 and died in 1758. So, you know, he was a contemporary of this architect, Servandoni. Yeah. I could talk forever, you know, looking at these pictures, because what do we see? We see, you know, the desire of human beings to last forever, you know, to conquer the passage of time. But then we see the clouds kind of smiling at us, you know, and passing by. And then we see, you know, ruined buildings, the human history, you know, they didn't have bombers at that time, but human beings always found ways to destroy what they did or what other people did. So, you know, this work actually is very interesting. Is the stage design for an opera, you know, performance, but it's, I would say, very modern. No, it's psychoanalytically charged. You know, it reminds me of the Gothic, you know, representations of Hans Pelzig somehow, but these were done 200 years earlier. This is rendering from his time, broken, you know, architectures, statues, lots of statues, and then around the statues, a few human beings, you know, like us, ephemeral. Columns, a river, the sky, very blue. Here is the golden frame of an artwork by him. The truth is, you know, even if these are, you know, artistic works, you know, paintings and engravings and so on, I still think they have relevance for architecture, you know, and they make you, you know, they make you dream, you know, they make you think also, you know, in my opinion, they are inspiration. Servandoni. Sorry about this. Here is another one. The magnificence of architecture. He also built, I will end this short presentation with two buildings where one of them was completely designed by him, and the other one, a very important church in Paris. He took over the designs of the original designs and, you know, accomplished a building, a very important church in Paris. We'll arrive at it. So he didn't just do paintings and drawings and fat, meaning party, you know, works, but also he built buildings. Ruins. It was, you know, these people, I think, in the 18th century had some. It's a very interesting century in a way. I will try to learn more about it. Yeah, because modernity was knocking at the door, and yet there was this nostalgia for antiquity. You know, I mean, look at these ruins. You know, imperial ruins. No. The man was in Rome, after all, and Rome is impressive in this field, very much so, still. And then I'll show also a few graphic works like this one. I guess it's like some kind of a stage design for a, you know, a performance. Here another, you know, graphic work by Servandoni, and now we'll go two built works by him. This castle, Dursel Castle, I think he built it in Belgium. Yes, it's the castle of Hengen. I don't know how to pronounce, I guess like in French. Hengen. I see there another name, the Belgium design of Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni. So this castle, Dursel Castle, also known the Castle of Dursel, used to be the private summer residence of the Duke of Ursel in Hingen, in the municipality of Bornem, province of Antwerp, in Belgium. Today is the property of the state and open to the public. And here it is, in all its splendor, built by Servandoni. And it's not a bad building, it's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too clean and it looks suspiciously new. But that's because the Belgians took care of it. But you are going to see the, from the side is, it even has a certain modernity, if I could say so. I don't think it's bad. And I wouldn't mind living here, in this cubicle here, have a nice spacious room and write poetry and play the violin if I knew how to play the violin, or just lay in bed and look at the ceiling and dream that there was no war in Ukraine. Well, yeah, Servandoni in Belgium. Not bad. In its own way, it's a cozy castle. Now, of course, not everybody, was capable of surrounding, even a castle with so much water. So apparently there was someone there, with some financial force, maybe not just financial, political and social and so on. Interesting work though, in its own way, nothing, nothing outrageous, but kept well by the Belgians. And it's a work which should make Servandoni not quite unhappy. And now we arrive at the last work that I showed, this very important church in Paris. In fact, the second biggest church in Paris after Notre Dame de Paris, Saint-Sulpice. And let's read. The Church of Saint-Sulpice is a Roman Catholic church in Paris, France, on the east side of Place Saint-Sulpice in the Latin quarter of the 6th arrondissement. It is only slightly smaller than Notre Dame and thus the second largest church in the city. It is dedicated to Sulpicius the Pious. Construction of the present building, the second church on the site, began in 1646. During the 18th century, an elaborate gnomon, the gnomon of Saint-Sulpice, was constructed in the church. Construction began in 1646 to designs which had been created by Christophe Gamard, but the front interfered and only the Lady Chapel had been built by 1660, when Daniel Gittard provided a new general design for most of the church. Gittard completed the sanctuary, ambulatory, apsidal chapels, transept, and north portal, after which construction was halted for lack of funds. Gilles-Marie Oppenort and Giovanni Servandoni, our hero today, adhering closely to Gittard's design, supervised further construction, mainly the nave and side chapels, from 1719 to 1745. That's a long time, no? 26 years. The decoration was executed by the brothers Sébastien Antoine Slotz and Paul Ambroise Slotz. And this is the building, the second largest church in Paris, where Servandoni had a significant role for 26 years. And it's not the usual church if you look at it, and it's rather I mean, it is domineering, but because of the duality of the towers so stringently asserting themselves, you know, the power is diluted or divided in two, so to speak. It's a surprising work in a way. Still interesting, an interesting work, and you see the scale is significant if you look at the human silhouettes. This is a view from the air. We are talking about Paris. Yeah, the interior is, so he worked here in the interior, the nave and the lateral, you know, apsides. It's, what can we say? It's a big work in France, an important church. I personally prefer the Gothic, you know, the Gothic sacred architecture, and not only the Gothic, but it's something about as I said, the 18th century already had modernism at its door, if the door was not already open. And the building kind of shows it. When you look at this building, you would never say this was built in the Middle Ages, or not even during the Renaissance. No, it's a newer building. But the interior has interesting things, and it is massive. It is, the space, I'm sure, is impressive, and it would have been even more impressive if there were no chairs. You probably know, in the Gothic cathedrals and in the old cathedrals, at first there were no chairs or benches. You know, indeed, how could you sit down, you know, comfortably in front of God? This was supposed to be the house of God, but you know, the more we advanced towards modernity, you know, human beings became more and more tired with more, you know, tiring physiques. So the chairs had to show up. And the truth is, if you are a tired tourist, one of these chairs could be quite a nice addition to the church. So, Saint-Sulpice, Paris, France. That's it.